Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World. My name is Anna Kalczyńska. Reinforcing support for Ukraine, expressing stronger resolve to counter Russian aggression and tackling the prevention of further escalation. These were the main takeaways of the European Political Community Summit in Copenhagen, which concluded Thursday, and some say nothing new under the sun. Adding that despite large consensus on the rising threats Europe faces, divergences persist, especially those pertinent to the infamous frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to announce David DeBatto, geopolitical analyst, former US Army counterintelligence agent, who joins me now to discuss these issues. Good evening, sir, and thank you for being with us here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, collective defense, but contested modalities. One of the discussed elements was obviously the drone wall as a way of defending the European airspace effectively. But there's friction here, again, about the priorities. Formerly, the German Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius, saying that there are other priorities than the drone wall. Then there's a friction also about who should lead, so which institution. What's your take on that?
My take is that the EU, as well as NATO, but we're talking specifically about the EU, is fragmented, and this has hindered their response, their support of Ukraine from the very, very beginning, going all the way back to 2014, but certainly since February of 2022. Look, until they get their, as we say here, get their act together and unify, whatever that takes, if they need to enact new policies, new regulations, new procedures, where there is more unified response, where somebody, some person takes control of this, or some country, where they speak with one voice, this is going to continue to be a problem. And the Kremlin feeds on that. They love the fact that the EU and, as I said, NATO is disunited, not united. This is a huge problem, which they need to solve, and solve very soon.
Right, disunited is a good word, especially as it comes to issue of funding and using frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. And here again, Belgium, Luxembourg and France, even though Emmanuel Macron doesn't speak about it out loud, but they oppose this idea. Why is that? Well, maybe we can listen to Belgian Prime Minister, who was quite obvious in Copenhagen. Let's have a listen.
I already hear from Moscow, if you touch my money, you will feel the consequences until eternity. That's a long time, eternity. I think also this is Russian for we might send you to eternity. The director of Euroclear already lives under close protection, so it is risky what we are going to do. I want everybody to be aware of that. I want a maximum of legal certainty, I want solidarity, and I want transparency on the situation in the other countries. I don't think this is an unreasonable position.
Well, that's a clear position here. Any comment on what could be the solution here, how it should be tackled?
Well, first of all, let me say that this gentleman's comments make me sick. I'll be pretty blunt. He's taking the Kremlin's threats just like many of Western European leaders are taking his threats, and they are bowing down to him. They are frozen. He mentioned about how Moscow said we will haunt you into eternity, or something like that. Really, what is Putin going to do? Invade Ukraine? He's already done that. Maybe he'll send a bunch of drones and MiGs over NATO territory. Sorry, he's done that too. Look, the Kremlin under Putin has violated every international law and decency by invading Ukraine. They've committed numerous war crimes. He himself, Putin, is an indicted war criminal. Why does anyone take whatever he says seriously? You have to listen to what he says, of course, but after all the atrocities that he has committed and continues to commit daily in Ukraine and the threats he makes against the rest of Europe. This Belgian individual is worried about being the legal niceties of not upsetting Putin any longer because he's threatening them. There's a word for that. It's insane. He's got to be kidding, but unfortunately, he's not. And if we listen to folks like that and keep our hands off of Russian assets, which can easily and should have been used to help Ukraine in their defense, you and I would not be speaking right now, because they would have had all the money that they needed to build to buy all of the weapons, both defensive and offensive, that they would have needed to push Russia out of Ukraine.
Well, there's another outcome possible, that is the undermining of the trust in European banking system. And I believe this is the argument used by French President Emmanuel Macron. However, there's another outcome, which is nationalizing Western assets by Vladimir Putin, who just signed a decree. So how about that? Some of the Western companies like UniCredit or L'Oreal must have taken that into their risk assessment, right?
Yes, they did. Let me just go back very briefly as far as losing the trust in Western financial institutions. If they were to do this, there's a war going on. I know they don't accept it yet, but this is a war. And if they're going to fall back on legal technicalities, well, they're going to lose the war. And I'll just leave it there. As far as Putin signing a decree that basically states that they will probably nationalize many of the Western corporations that are still operating in Russia, go for it. Do it. These companies shouldn't be there anyway. It's a disgrace. It's an insult to Ukraine and the other Western companies, or countries rather, that they are still there. Are they going to take a huge hit for this, meaning those corporations? Yes. And I'm embarrassed to say that about 40% of the American corporations that were operating in Russia prior to 2022 are still there. This is disgusting. It's just unbelievable that they're still doing this. We could go on about the other financial issues, such as the shadow fleet and sanctions and so forth. But the fact that he wants to nationalize Western corporations, in my humble opinion, is a good news and a kick in the guts that these corporations need about this time.
How about this belligerent talk of European Union? We hear of war, we hear Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk saying that this is a war. And so all European statements keep on repeating those words. On the other hand, we have just heard Vladimir Putin, who discredits it, saying that there's no will on the Russian side to wage any war with NATO. So how do you comment on that in the light of the recent incursions and obvious threats to Polish, for instance, infrastructure?
Well, what's happening is what's been happening. Those countries on the eastern fringe, Poland being one of them, are very aware of the threat, the real threat that Russia poses to Europe, all of Europe, not just the eastern flank, the countries that are the most exposed. So, of course, you're having those countries, the Baltics, Poland, and others, that are voicing reality and saying, no, we are at war. You have others, such as Macron and Merz and some others, saying, well, it's not really a war. It's difficult. Ukraine's maybe at war, but we're not. Again, this is very dangerous. It's disgusting. Russia has been at war with the West for years. Putin has said this. We are at war by sending drones, armed drones, into NATO countries, sending MiGs over NATO airspace, and by doing what he's done in Ukraine for the last 11 years. I think most folks would call that a war, and the sooner that the rest of the EU and NATO acknowledges that they are in a war, an actual war, hybrid or not, the sooner that they're going to be able to protect their own citizens and their own nations.
All right, let us now turn to Hungary, blocking Ukraine's EU accession. That was also one of the most focal points. Despite lengthy talks and between the European 50 leaders on how to support Kiev, it looks like the legal architecture of European Union is paralyzing the decision-making process. So here comes Hungary, which has to green light a change of the decision-making mechanism, right? So what's your take on that? Is European Union going to finally legalize the accession and the enlargement process with Ukraine or not?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's paralyzed the EU. And I know that they have been working recently on workarounds to exclude Hungary from being able to paralyze the EU. They need to work much, much faster. They need to make Orban a pariah, because he should not be allowed single-handedly, with possibly sometimes with FISO as well, to paralyze the EU and make the decisions that are absolutely crucial to the defense of Ukraine and, by extension, the defense of Europe. They can't allow this. So this workaround that they're doing, which could be done, I'm not sure why it's not been done yet, that will cut Orban out of the process, or any one nation, to make a decision that is crucial to all the rest of the members. I just pray they make that workaround official very, very soon.
Sir, and lastly, and shortly, as we have to wrap up, but since there were no apart from Keith Kellogg, obviously, United States was not part of these discussions. But from your point of view, you're closer from Tampa, Florida, to Washington. What's your guess on providing the Ukrainians the Tomahawk long-range missiles by the Trump administration? Is it going to happen or not?
It's a good question, because anybody that tries to second guess Donald Trump or think about what he's actually saying and doing it's a fool's errand. I pray that we, the United States, provide the Tomahawks to Ukraine. I know that the Congress, including both houses, the Senate and House of Representatives, want this very much, including his own party, the Republicans. Whether or not they can push that through, because tomorrow Donald Trump may say, no, I think that's a really bad idea. I like Putin again. He's my best forever friend. Then it won't happen. So my answer to you is, unfortunately, I don't know. But even if they do, the United States may limit the targets that the Tomahawks can use, saying that they may not be able to project those into Russia. I'm not saying that will happen, but it will be up to Americans to tell the Ukrainians where they can use the Tomahawk. So I hope they follow through with providing it, and I hope that they allow them to strike any targets within the range of the Tomahawk inside of Russia.
David DeBatto, geopolitical analyst, U.S. Army counterintelligence agent. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and have a good evening.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All was ours. And thank you for watching World Talks here on TVP World. Please stay tuned for more news, more updates, and interesting commentaries. See you soon.